You ever see something that just don't make sense, no matter how many times you play it over in your head? Like your brain just keeps trying to stitch it into something logical, but no matter how hard it tries, it ends up twisted, wrong, unnatural. That's what happened to me one night on a long haul through Nevada. It was around 3 o'clock in the morning, give or take. I'd been driving since sundown, and I was maybe 200 miles out from Salt Lake, running light on sleep, but heavy on caffeine. I remember the road was dead empty. You know how it gets out. They're just pitch black desert on either side. No streetlights, no towns, no exits. Just your own headlights cutting through the dark like a knife. There's a strange piece to that, kind of loneliness. But that night, something felt off. I don't say that lightly. I've been driving trucks close to 25 years now, and I've seen just about every kind of roadkill, wreck, weirdo, and weather pattern you can imagine. But this was different. It was that kind of feeling you get when you're being watched, not by another driver, not by a cop hiding off the shoulder, but by something else. Like something in the dark, just outside the reach of your high beams. I shook it off at first, chalked it up to fatigue or maybe too much bad diner coffee. But the further I drove, the heavier that feeling got, like the darkness itself was pressing in. Then I saw the first sign, and I don't mean a road sign. It was this shape, maybe 100 yards ahead. At first I thought it was an animal, maybe a coyote or something, standing by the side of the road. But it didn't move, just stood there, dead still. My brights hit it, and I could swear it was a man. Only something was off. He was tall, way too tall, like his head was almost touching the bottom edge of a road sign. Skinny, too, unnaturally so. His arms hung down, low like knees, level low, and his skin, it looked grey. Or maybe the light was just hitting him weird, but he didn't flinch, didn't move, didn't wave for help. Just stood there, staring dead at me as I passed. I'll tell you now, that should have been enough for me to stop. Maybe call it in, or at least take a break. But I didn't. I just kept going. Figured it was my eyes playing tricks. But deep down, I knew I'd just seen something I wasn't supposed to see. I kept glancing in my mirrors, expecting to see something, anything back there. But there was not. Just blackness swallowing up the highway behind me, like the world didn't exist past my dialights. I cranked the radio to keep my mind off it, but even that didn't help. Every station was static, like I'd slipped out of range of everything. Familiar. That happens sometimes in remote stretches, sure, but this was different. There was this faint humming underneath the static, like something mechanical, pulsing in and out, almost like a signal trying to push through. I shut the radio off. Silence was better than that strange noise. A few minutes passed. My eyes were starting to play games again, shapes shifting at the edge of the road. Little glimmers in the corners of my vision that vanished when I looked straight at M. It's common enough when you're tired, but this felt deliberate. Like something wanted me to see it, but only half see it, just enough to get in my head. That's when the headlights behind me showed up. I hadn't seen another vehicle for over an hour, but now, suddenly, there were these twin beams way back, maybe half a mile or more, faint but steady. Normally, I'd feel some relief. Company on the road is good when you're running solo, but this didn't sit right. They didn't gain on me. They didn't fall back. They just stayed exactly the same distance behind, holding steady even. As I adjusted my speed, 65, 70, back down to 60. No difference. Always the same gap. I thought maybe it was another driver just keeping pace. But anyone who's been on the road long enough knows that's not how it works. Nobody stays that exact distance behind unless they're doing it on purpose. And who does that on an empty stretch of desert highway at 3:15 in the damn morning? I flicked my CB on, gave a shout. Breaker 19, anyone out there westbound? On I-80, just passing mile marker 147. Got a shadow behind me, holding back a ways. You copy static. Not even a polite click. I waited a few seconds, tried again. Breaker 19, any ears on? Got an unusual tail, just wanna confirm eyes. Still nothing. That's when the lights behind me blinked off. Not faded, not dipped. Just gone. 1 second they were there, next they weren't. I slowed down, gripping the wheel tight enough my knuckles hurt, eyes darting between the mirrors and the road ahead. For a second I thought maybe whoever it was had pulled off or their lights died, but the way they vanished clean, no trace, like someone just flipped a switch made my stomach twist. Then, just as I was catching my breath, they reappeared. Only now they were closer. A lot closer. They'd jumped what had to be. A quarter mile in the blink of an eye. I should have hit the brakes. I should have pulled over, but I didn't. I just kept driven, my foot like lead on the pedal, heart thumping against my ribs. I didn't know what I was dealing with, but it damn sure wasn't normal. And whatever it was, it had locked onto me, and it wasn't gonna let go. My hands were starting to sweat against the wheel, even though the AC was blasting. I kept darting my eyes to the mirror, and those headlights, they were too close now. Way too close. But they didn't behave like normal headlights. You know how regular beams scatter a little, give you that glow on the asphalt? These were narrow, sharp, like two surgical knives slicing through the dark. They didn't bounce. They didn't flare when they hit signs. They just stayed there, locked in, steady, unblinking. I tapped the brakes lightly, just enough to see if the driver would react. Nothing. No slowing down, no swerving. Just constant pressure, as if the damn vehicle was tethered to mine by some invisible rope. I was breathing through my nose now, trying not to panic. I've been tailed before. I've dealt with road rage, even had some creepers follow me out of rest stops, but this was something different. This felt like a hunter closing in. I decided to lose them. Figured if I pushed the engine hard for a few minutes, I'd create some distance, get a better look. I dropped it down and gave her gas. RPMs climbed. The truck roared under me and the road flew by in a blur. 90-95, even touched. 100 for a second there. My trailer was empty, so I had the speed, and for a moment, just a second, I thought it worked. The lights disappeared from the mirror again, and this time I hoped they were gone for good. But that hope died quick, because they didn't just come back, they were ahead of me now. Asterisk, I swear on everything. Those headlights appeared right in the middle of the road, like they'd teleported a quarter mile in front of me. I slammed on the brakes so hard I felt the trailer shudder behind me. Tires squealed, the cab rocked, and my coffee thermos flew out of the holder, hit the floor with a thunk. I came to a halt maybe 20 yards from whatever was up there. Only it wasn't a vehicle. There was no engine noise, no shape. Just those two beams, floating maybe 4 feet off the ground. No source, no car. Just lights, like the eyes of something standing still and waiting. And I know this sounds nuts, but I could feel it watching me. Not like a person would. No curiosity, no confusion. It felt like hunger. Like whatever was behind those lights had been waiting for me for a long time, and now that I'd stopped, it was finally time to move in. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared at those lights, heart pounding in my ears. Then they started moving again, slow, deliberate, coming straight toward my truck. That was the first time I really believed I might not make it through the night. I don't know what kept me rooted there in that driver's seat. Maybe it was shock, maybe it was pure animal fear, but I just sat there like a statue while those lights came creeping toward me. They didn't bounce or shake like normal headlights do when a vehicle rolls down uneven asphalt. They glided, perfectly level, silent, like they weren't attached to anything at all. Just those two glowing orbs floating above the road, creeping up inch by inch. I gripped the wheel with both hands, trying to convince myself to throw it in reverse, or pull a U-turn right there in the middle of the damn highway. But I couldn't. It was like something was holding me in place, pressing down on me like invisible weight. My breathing got shallow, mouth dry. My ears were ringing like I'd just left a concert. All the noise in the cab, the hum of the dash, the faint buzz of the CB, the air conditioning, it had all gone dead. There was nothing, no sound but the hum of my tires cooling off and those lights sliding closer. They got within 10 feet before they stopped. Still just hanging there, no vehicle, no form. And that's when something shifted. I swear, it's the part that still haunts me the most. It wasn't just what I saw, it was what I felt. My chest got tight. I had this sensation, like the space inside the cab wasn't mine anymore. Like something had entered it without opening a door. I turned slowly to my right, and the passenger seat was still empty. Nothing there, but it didn't feel empty. It felt occupied. Like someone or something was sitting there watching me up close. I couldn't see it, but I could feel its stare boring through my temple. My scalp tingled like it was crawling. With static, that's when the smell hit me. It came out of nowhere, wet copper, like blood and rust. Thick, suffocating, like I'd driven straight into a room where something had died hours ago and been left to stew in the heat. I gagged. Actually gagged. It coated the inside of my nose and throat and settled in my gut like a sickness. I don't know what made me move, but something in my head just screamed go. I didn't check the mirrors, didn't think about what was in front of me. I just slammed the shifter back into drive and floored it. The truck lurched forward, tires squealing, and I drove straight through those floating lights. For half a second, I thought I'd crash into something solid, but there was nothing. Number. Resistance. No impact. Just cold. I mean a deep, unnatural cold, like I'd driven through a freezer that opened into a void. The lights vanished the moment I passed them, like they'd never existed. I kept driving. Didn't look back. Didn't slow down. For a long time, the road ahead stayed black and empty, but I could still feel it. That presence, that thing. Like it had gotten inside me somehow, like it hadn't needed to follow me anymore, because it was already riding with me, and that was only the beginning. I don't even remember how long I kept driving after that. Could have been 15 minutes. Could have been an hour. Time didn't feel real anymore. The road stretched out endlessly ahead of me, same to yellow lines, same cracked asphalt, same broken mile markers flashing by like ghosts. I didn't see another soul, not one headlight, not even a flicker of life on the CB. I was just alone, barreling through the dark like I'd been peeled out of the real world and dropped into some forgotten stretch of existence. Every so often, I'd glance at the passenger seat again, half expecting to see something sitting there, just barely visible in my peripheral vision, but it was always empty. Still, that pressure remained, that heavy, awful sense that I wasn't alone in the cab. It was like sitting next to someone invisible who never blinked, never moved, just stared. My skin itched all over. Every instinct in me was telling me to stop, to pull over, get out, breathe. But I knew if I did, something bad was gonna happen. Something final. The smell hadn't gone either. That coppery stench just lingered in the cab like a warning. I rolled the windows down, even though the desert air was cold enough to bite. It didn't help. If anything, the smell got worse. Like it wasn't in the air outside, it was coming from inside the truck. I reached over and opened the glove box, checked under the seats, even kicked at the floor mat like an idiot, like I was gonna find a dead animal jammed under the pedals or something. But there was nothing. Just my usual road junk spare maps, old receipts, a half-finished Slim Jim I'd forgotten about. That's when the dashboard lights flickered at first. It was just a quick blink, like the voltage dipped for a second, but then they started pulsing, slow and rhythmic, like a heartbeat. The speedometer needle twitched. The fuel gauge dropped to E, then jumped back to full. My oil light came on, blinked twice, then vanished. I tapped the dash with my knuckles, muttered, "Come on, not now." I'd had electrical problems before, sure, but this wasn't electrical. This felt deliberate, like something was manipulating the systems, playing with me. Then the CB crackled, loud, louder than it should have been, like someone cranked the volume all the way up. I jumped in my seat, heart hammering. It was just static at first, but underneath it faint warbled broken I heard a voice. It wasn't mine, it wasn't anybody I recognized. It was whispering something I couldn't quite make out, like it was speaking through a broken speaker underwater. But then a word came through, clear as day. Stop. Just that. One word. Cold. Flat. Final. Then everything went dead. The dashboard, the engine, the lights, even the hum of the road vanished. My truck wasn't moving anymore. I hadn't touched the brakes, hadn't let off the gas butt. It had come to a complete stop, like the road itself had decided. I wasn't going any farther, and I swear to God, the world around me, it went silent, too silent, like the whole planet had stopped breathing. I sat there, frozen, hands clenched so tight around the wheel my knuckles had gone white, bloodless. The silence was suffocating, thick, like the air had turned to syrup. No engine rumble, no wind, not even the distant hum of insects or the ticking of a cooling engine. Just nothing. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring because your brain starts begging for some kind of sound. I glanced down. All the dash lights were dead. No speed reading, no fuel, no battery light, like the entire rig had just flatlined. And yet, I hadn't felt it stop. No jerk, no coast. It was like the road had disappeared out from under me and I was just placed here, set down like a toy in the middle of a black velvet sheet. I reached for my phone in the cup holder and flipped the screen on blank. No battery icon, no startup logo, just dead. Same with my flashlight. Even the little backup emergency radio I keep under the seat, which has got its own battery pack. Nothing. And then, off in the dark far beyond the reach of my dead headlights, saw something move. Not fast, not dramatic, just a shape, human-like. Maybe it was too far to make out details, but I knew instantly it wasn't a tree or a sign or some animal. It was too upright, too still, and then it took a step. I saw the motions, low, deliberate. One leg forward, then the other. It didn't sway or shift like a person does when they walk. It glided, like every step was happening in slow motion, each footfall placed with perfect intention. I couldn't see its face, couldn't see its arms or even clothes. Just a silhouette in the dark that seemed to absorb the night instead of reflect it. My mouth went dry again. That thing wasn't just walking toward MIT, was approaching me, like it had known exactly where I'd be and exactly when I'd stop. I tried the key, turned it hard. Nothing, not a click, not a cough. Like the whole truck was just a shell now. My heart was pounding so loud I thought it might echo through the cab and give away my position if I wasn't already caught. I stared ahead, trying to convince myself I was imagining it. A hallucination, maybe. Stress, exhaustion. But the figure kept coming. Steady, relentless. It had already crossed maybe 100 feet of blacktop, and it hadn't slowed once. I could see more now, the way it moved wrong, like its joints bent where they shouldn't, like its knees were reversed or doubled. I wanted to back up, climb into the sleeper cab, hide like a damn child under the covers, but I couldn't move. My body wouldn't listen. I was locked there, eyes wide, breath shallow, watching something I was never supposed to see make its way across a dead highway to my truck like it had all the time in the world, and just as it got within 50 feet, it stopped, right there, in the middle of the road, facing me, not moving, just standing there like it knew. I was watching, like it was waiting. I didn't blink. I couldn't. That thing, whatever it was, just stood there in the dark, halfway between the edge of the highway and the edge of sanity. My hands were trembling now, the sweat on my palms making the steering wheel slick, but I didn't dare let go. It was like if I moved, even slightly, I'd break some kind of unspoken rule and give it permission to come closer. And even though it wasn't moving, I could feel something radiating off it, pressure, like heat, but wrong, heavy, almost like the air between us was being sucked in, pulled toward it like gravity, bending everything around it, even thought. I felt it in my skull tightening, buzzing, like my brain was trying to pull away from the inside of my head. Then the headlights turned, back on, but not my headlights. No, these were behind the thing. Same 2 pinpoints of cold, white light that I'd seen earlier, flickering on without a sound. They didn't illuminate the figure. In fact, the closer the light came, the darker it got round him, like the glow avoided it, like light itself, refused to touch it. I watched in horror as the 2 lights slowly rose off the ground, higher, then higher still, until they weren't headlights anymore. They were eyes, massive, perfectly round, glowing like something ancient and furious had just opened its gaze onto me and decided I was worth looking at. My stomach twisted into a knot. That's when the figure in the road lifted its arm slowly, so slow it was almost graceful, and pointed directly at me. I don't know what broke first, my nerve or my body, but I finally screamed, loud, raw, a sound I hadn't made since I was a kid. I slammed my fist into the ignition over and over again, begging it to catch, to spark, to do something. On the 5th punch, the dash lights flickered, weak, then stronger. Then, by some miracle, the engine coughed back to life, a low groan at first, like it was waking up from a nightmare of its own, then a full, throaty rumble. I didn't wait. I jammed the truck into gear and floored it, tires shrieking as I tore down that stretch of empty road like the devil himself was behind me, and Maybe he was. I didn't look back. Couldn't, not even when the CB crackled again. This time the voice was louder, clearer, and so close it sounded like it was right in the cab with me. One word, stretched out like it was being dragged through teeth. Mieni, I screamed. Again, kept driving. I drove like the pavement was on fire behind me, and even then, I wasn't sure I'd escaped. I don't remember how long I drove like that, pedal slammed to the floor, heart punching holes in my chest. All I know is the world became one long blur of yellow lines, red dashboard glow, and pure animal fear. I didn't care about speed. Limits, didn't care if a tire blew, didn't care if I rolled right into a ditch. I just needed distance. Distance between me and that thing, those eyes, that voice, that suffocating presence I could still feel pressing against the back of my neck like cold breath I couldn't shake. But even after miles of flat-out running, that feeling never left. If anything, it grew, like whatever it was, wasn't behind me anymore. It was with me. I started to notice it in small ways at first. The radio, which had been dead, crackled. Once again, no station, no voice, just a single low-frequency hum, like the sound of something buried deep beneath the earth, groaning in its sleep. The mirrors started to shake, not from the road or engine, but like something was brushing up against them from the inside. And the smell, that rotted metal stink, was back, thicker than before, curling into my nostrils no matter how far I rolled down the windows or how hard I sucked in the cold night air. Then my headlights, my real, working truck-mounted headlights flickered once, just once. But in that flash of darkness, I saw the silhouette again, standing on the shoulder of the road, closer than before, not a mile back, not 100 yards, 10 feet just off the right side of the highway, watching me pass like it was waiting for me to notice. I slammed my fist against the steering wheel, shouting to no one, "What the hell do you want from me?" My voice bounced off the inside of the cab, thin and useless. There was no answer, just the low groan of the tires, the sound of wind slamming through the cracked window, and my own breathing growing faster and more ragged. Then the road changed. Subtly. At first, I didn't notice it until I realized I hadn't passed a single sign, exit, or reflector for at least 20 minutes. The lines on the road, once clean and familiar, started to look wrong, wavy, too bright, like they were freshly painted just seconds before I passed over them. And the asphalt itself, smooth, too smooth, no cracks, no wear. It didn't feel like any highway I'd ever driven. I looked at the GPS unit on my dash out of habit and nearly choked. The screen was on, lit up bright, but it wasn't showing any roads. Just a flat, empty grid. No direction, no route. Just one single, blinking word in the center. Nowhere. That's when I knew I wasn't on any normal stretch of highway anymore. I'd crossed over, and wherever I was, now it wasn't a place meant for people. I gripped the wheel tighter, trying to feel something solid, something real, anything that would anchor me back to the world I knew. But the more I focused on the road, the less real it looked. The headlights stretched out into the dark, but they didn't reveal anything I recognized. No road signs, no guardrails, not even the texture of gravel on the shoulder. Just this endless, perfect ribbon of black, stretching forward and backward, with no beginning, no end. And all the while, that word kept flashing on the GPS: nowhere. Nowhere, nowhere. Over and over. Like a warning I was too late to heed. I muttered under my breath. This can't be real. This can't be real. But even my own voice sounded thin and distant, like it wasn't coming from me anymore. I slapped my face, hard, once, then again. I tried everything to shake the fog, outrolled down both windows, turned the dome light on and off, even reached into the glove box and bit into a packet of raw instant coffee grounds just for the bitter shock. But nothing worked. I was still there, still moving through this nowhere place that wasn't on any map, with a feeling in my gut like gravity had turned sideways. And then I noticed the signs, not highway signs, not regular ones. They were handmade, carved into wood, old, splintered, and they weren't giving directions. They were warnings. The first one flew past before I could read it. Just a glimpse of white paint on dark planks. The second one, I saw a little clearer. You shouldn't be here. The third, turn around now. But I couldn't. The road had narrowed behind me, sloped in on both sides. No shoulder, no room to turn. Like the road had reshaped itself to trap me. I was in a tunnel of darkness, and it was closing in. That's when the lights started, again flickering on both sides of the road like old lanterns hanging in invisible trees. Faint at first, but growing more and more. I saw figures in them, shadowy outlines. People, I think, but not like any people I've seen. They didn't move, just stood perfectly still, facing the road, arms at their sides, heads tilted just slightly like they were watching me pass in slow motion. Their faces were pale, blank, like wax masks stretched over skulls that didn't quite fit. One of them, I swear to God, looked exactly like me. Same hat, same jacket, same tired expression carved into its face. But it didn't blink, didn't breathe. It just stared as I rolled by like I was the ghost and he was the living one. I pressed the gas, harder, but the engine started to groan like it didn't want to go faster, like the truck itself was resisting me. I felt it in the steering wheel, a slow tug, like something was guiding me off the road even though I hadn't touched the wheel. I fought it, jerking it back, and shouted, "Hell no, not today." But the truck kept drifting anyway, and up ahead, barely visible in the dark, I saw something waiting in the middle of the road again. Only this time, it was kneeling, like it was praying to me. I slammed on the brakes, tires howling against the too smooth blacktop, the whole rig shaking like it was tearing itself apart. The dashboard flickered wildly, every warning light flaring up like a Christmas tree about to catch fire. But I didn't care. I needed to stop. I couldn't run over whatever was up ahead, even in this place. I couldn't bring myself to drive through something that looked that human. The figure stayed perfectly still, kneeling right in the center of the road like it was locked in a trance. Head bowed, hands clasped, back arched in reverence or agony, couldn't tell which. The closer I looked, the more it reminded me of a statue, something ancient and half melted by time. Only this thing wasn't made of stone. No, this thing had skin, pale, paper-thin, veined with black lines that pulsed in rhythm, like something alive was crawling underneath the surface. I stared, frozen in my seat, breathing shallow through my nose because the air had turned foul again. Not just coppery this time, but sickly sweet, like rotting meat left in a plastic bag under the sun. My stomach lurched. I dry heaved into the steering wheel, but nothing came out. I kept my eyes on the figure, hoping begging it wouldn't move, but of course it did. Asterisk, it lifted its head, and I swear to everything holy, It had my face, not just a resemblance. My face, my tired eyes, my stubble, even the little scar on the chin I got in high school wrestling. But its mouth was wrong, too wide. Lips thin and stretched, like someone had taken my features and forced them onto a puppet that had never learned how to smile like a human being. And when it opened that mouth, it made a sound that broke something in me. It wasn't a scream, not a cry. It was a reversal of sound, like all the noise in the world was being sucked into it. Trees bowed inward. The mirrors on my truck shuddered. My own breath hitched in my chest like it didn't want to leave my lungs. Then the voice came through the CB again. Clearer this time, same tone, same impossibly deep resonance, like it was coming from underneath the earth and inside my skull at the same time. You brought yourself here. That was all it said. I stared at the radio like it might explain itself, but I already knew. This wasn't about bad luck. This wasn't about wrong turns or ghost stories at truck stops. I had been chosen, or worse, I had been called. And whatever this place was, I wasn't just driving through it anymore. I was part of it. It knew me, it wore me, and it wasn't going to let me leave. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at that thing wearing my face. Could have been seconds, could have been hours. Time didn't feel right anymore. It stretched and twisted like heat waves off asphalt, rippling through my mind until I couldn't tell what was memory and what was happening in real time. The thing rose slowly from its knees, like it had all the time in the world. It didn't stumble, didn't shake. It just stood up smooth, like it was weightless. I watched my own reflection, my same boots, my same jacket, the same hat I had, sitting on the dashboard right then and there, and I felt this cold bloom in my chest, like ice spreading through my lungs. Whatever this was, it had taken me. Not just my image. It felt like it was peeling pieces off my being, stripping me down to whatever was underneath and using it like a disguise. Then it took a step forward, not fast, not threatening, just casual, like we were old friends, like it knew I wouldn't leave. Maybe it was right. My legs wouldn't move. My arms stayed welded to the wheel, even though I wasn't sure if I was holding on to stay in control, or because I was afraid if I let go, I'd lose the last piece of myself that was real. It stopped about 10 feet from the front bumper. It looked directly into my eyes, and that mouth, that horrible stretched out mouth, curved into something almost like a smile. Then it raised its right hand and pointed at me, just like the thing back on the road earlier. My breath hitched. I could feel it again. That pull, like the very air between us, was being sucked out. The lights inside the cab dimmed. The GPS blinked once and then went dark again. That cursed word, nowhere, fading away into static, and then it mouthed something. No sound, just movement. For slow words, "You are already gone," I snapped. Screamed again, this time not in fear, but in rage. I don't know where the anger came from. Maybe it was all that pressure boiling over. Maybe I just needed something to punch through the madness. But I slammed the truck into gear and mashed the gas pedal to the floor. The truck lurched forward. I aimed straight at that copy of me, and just before the rig would have made contact, before the grill hit flesh, it vanished. Not jumped, not dodged, just gone, like fog in sunlight. 1 second there, the next, empty air. The truck kept going. I didn't slow down. I didn't check the mirrors. I didn't want to know what might be crawling up behind me or worse inside me. I just drove and drove until the yellow lines began to fray and twist again, until the road started changing. beneath me like a living thing. I was still deep in whatever dimension this was, but I wasn't giving it the satisfaction of breaking me, not yet, because whatever this place was, it wanted me broken. It wanted me hollow, and I could feel it burrowing. I don't know if you've ever felt your own memories turn against you, but it's a special kind of terror, worse than anything I'd seen on the road, worse than any ghost story passed around truck stop coffee counters. This was different. This was personal. As I kept driving, though driving barely felt like the right word anymore, more like floating, I began to notice things around me changing. Subtle at first. The air vents were no longer the same shape. The CB unit had a crack running through it that I didn't remember being there. The floor mat under my boots wasn't the worn-out rubber I'd spilled coffee on a dozen times before. It was clean to clean, like it had never been used. But the worst was the photo. There's this old picture I keep clipped to the dash me, and my boy back when he was 6, standing in front of the truck at a 4th of July fair. I look exhausted in that photo, but proud. He's got cotton candy in one hand and is giving me bunny ears with the other. Every time I get tired, I glance at it. It reminds me why I'm out here. But when I looked this time, it was wrong. I picked it up, heart already thudding, and stared hard. Same truck, same pose, same weathered background of summer sky and fair tents. But the kid in the photo wasn't mine. His face was blurred. Not just out of focus, either like someone had smeared his features with wet paint. I could still see the cotton candy, still see the little hand on my shoulder. But the face, it was a void. And my face, my expression had changed. I wasn't smiling anymore. I was staring dead on into the camera, mouth slightly open, like I'd just seen something behind the photographer. Something horrifying I dropped. The photos, it fluttered down between the seats like it was a dead thing. My hands were shaking again, not from fear exactly, from unreality. That feeling when you're not even sure if you're inside your own life anymore. I reached for my glove box, fumbling it open, desperate for something familiar. My spare pack of smokes was still there. I don't smoke often, but hell if I didn't need one now. I lit it with hands that wouldn't stop trembling, took a long drag and tried to focus. "You're okay," I whispered. "Just tired, just stressed. Gotta keep your mind together." But as I exhaled, I saw something in the rear-view mirror. It was the same damn road, stretching behind me, endless only. Now there were signs, new ones planted like mile markers in the dark. The first one said, "Remember what you gave up." The second, "Remember who you left behind." The third, "Remember who you are." I looked. Forward Agonand. The road was changing. The lines were gone. The pavement cracked and old now, like a road I hadn't seen in 20 years. And ahead was a truck stop, one I knew from my past. Only that stop had burned down over a decade ago, and I buried a part of myself with it. I eased off the accelerator and coasted toward the truck stop, my high beams scraping over weather-beaten pumps and a sagging canopy whose peeling red stripes matched exactly how I remembered them, except they shouldn't exist anymore. Not after the fire that ate this place down to its rebar bones 11 years back. The neon sign still clung to its single, cracked pole. Letters stuttering between crimson and corpse white. Easy Rest 24 HR. I knew that sign had shattered in the blaze, yet here it glowed like a relic resurrected just for me. My tires hissed. Across gravel that hadn't been laid since before the rebuild that never happened. Every crunch under the rubber felt like a bone snapping somewhere deep in memory. I parked beneath a dead fluorescent tube, killed the engine, and the silence. That fell was thick as graveyard earth. For a moment, I just stared at the storefront dusty glass. A faded open decal flapping inside the pan until a shape moved behind the door and I nearly swallowed my own heartbeat. The door creaked outward, spilling a cone of mustard light onto the lot, and out stepped Carla, the overnight waitress who'd been on shift the night of the fire. She looked exactly as she had that last evening, hair piled in a lazy bun. Mustard-stained apron, little heart tattoo on her wrist butt. Her eyes were wrong, irises clouded over with milky film, like cataracts of ash. She smiled that shy grin I'd halfway fallen for back then, and waved like I'd just rolled in for coffee and pie after a long haul. Not like I'd watched her scream through smoke while I yanked another driver from a burning cab we never should have. Parked so close to the diesel pumps. My throat tightened. I wanted to call her name, tell her to run, apologize for leaving her behind when the roof caved, but no sound came, only a thin wheeze of terror and guilt. She beckoned me. Behind her, I could see the diner interior frozen in a snapshot of that night. Chrome stools shining, jukebox lights flickering, same half-mopped floor reflecting flames that hadn't yet started. The smell hit me next, burned, sugar and scorched. Grease layered over that coppery rot that had followed me since nowhere. I stepped down from the cab, gravel shifting under my boots like hot coal, and with every step the truck stop brightened. Fires playing backwards across the windows, unburning the walls, restoring the life that would soon be lost again. Lips moved, forming words I could finally hear. You can fix it this time. But her voice wasn't hers. It was the CB voice, the subterranean growl that had whispered stop. My skin crawled as the pumps clicked on by themselves. Diesel numbers, spinning hoses, twitching like snakes ready to strike. I realized the place wasn't inviting me to relive the memory. It was daring me to change it, to wedge myself between past and present, and tear open whatever thin fabric still separated the two. And in the fluorescence above, my shadow stretched, impossibly long, bending toward the diner door where a second figure waited me again. Soot-streaked and screaming, trapped in a burning reflection that hadn't happened yet but was about to. I don't remember making the decision to walk inside. 1 second, I was outside the truck stop, staring at myself behind the glass shard. Wild-eyed pleading on the next, the bell over the door jingled softly above me, just like it used to, like nothing had ever happened. The air inside was warm and syrup thick, carrying the faint scent of burnt toast and diesel, just like I remembered from the dozens of late nights I'd stopped here. Carla stood behind the counter, wiping a coffee pot that didn't need wiping, her smile too wide and too still. The lights buzzed above us like trapped hornets. I looked around, half expecting someone else from my past to step out of the shadows. A driver I'd wronged, a friend I'd lost, someone, anyone, but it was just us and that other me still pressed, up against the mirrored side of the fridge, staring back with hollow eyes. He looked worse, no cracks spiderwebbed across his face, skin blackened in patches, like he'd been left in a fire that never finished consuming him. Carla looked at me and said again, "You can fix it." But this time, I didn't believe her. I looked down at the floor and realized it wasn't tile anymore, it was road. Cracked, endless highway, stretching out into blackness in every direction. My boots were planted on painted yellow lines that curved where they shouldn't, where no road should ever curve. And the diner around me, it started to fade. The walls peeled into shadows. The windows grew tall and thin like gravestones. The counter melted into the horizon. All that was left was the truck and me and the road. I turned back toward the exit and saw my rig parked right where I'd left it, still idling, still waiting. The trailer lights pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. But now there was something else in the cab, a shape in the passenger seat, slumped, familiar. Familiar. I walked slowly toward it, the heat rising off the pavement in oily waves. My breath hitched, my gut twisted. I opened the door and looked inside. It was me, but not a version I'd ever seen before. Older, worn out, hollowed, skin pale, eyes open and unblinking, staring straight ahead, like a man who'd spent too many nights on roads that don't exist. He didn't move when I opened the door. He didn't react at all. He just sat there, like he'd been waiting for this moment for longer than I could imagine. A voice came from the CB one last time. The road doesn't end, you do. And then everything stopped. No wind, no sound, no engine, just me, staring at myself, understanding something awful and final. I'd never left that highway. Not really. Maybe I died back at mile marker 147. Maybe I never existed at all. Or maybe I'm still driving, still trapped on that stretch of haunted blacktop that eats time and memory and soul. So if you ever find yourself driving through Nevada at 3 a.m. and your radio picks up a voice that sounds a little too familiar, if the road stretches a little too long without turns or signs, if your GPS says nowhere turn around, don't slow down, and for the love of God, don't stop, because I did, and I've been driving ever since.